The content in this magazine could contain references of topics and difficult subject matter that may be triggering. Please honor yourself, inner knowing, and proceed with whatever help or guidance you feel is intuitively aligned. Welcome to Sovereign Magazine Podcast. I'm Nicole George, CEO and founder of Sovereign. I'm so happy you are here. We are the magazine, podcast, and community guiding 5 million women to their sovereign selves. From heart-led conversations to magical meditations, our inspiring guests will show you how they can help you step into your sovereign self. Are you ready to listen to your inner voice and step into your power? Then keep listening to hear all of the intuitive messages meant for you today. Hello. Today I have the privilege of reconnecting with Ebonie Allard, one of our amazing contributors. She is a fulfillment coach, soul contract guide, and she is here to help culture makers decode their soul contracts, integrate shadow patterns, and reignite their sacred spark so that they can feel and live a very alive and aligned life. She's the creator of the Kismet Codes and Kismet Flicks, and she weaves human design, gene keys, astrology, and numerology with somatic practices and energetic alchemy so that you can live a very playful yet profound path to your own self-discovery. So whether you are seeking clarity, confidence, or a touch of magic, she is here to help you see yourself and live your life in a whole new light. Welcome back, Ebonie.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited about our topic today because you have a really, really interesting twist on our theme, which is fear, anger, and jealousy, which is our February new moon issue. And in your article on anger, the body, and finally listening, you really share your relationship with your body and how it can look differently in the moment when you start to take radical responsibility for your inner world. So for those who haven't read your article yet, perhaps share a little bit more about it and why you wrote it.
When I first heard the theme, I was like, but I'm just not an angry person. And then I was like, this is why you've got to write this article. Because so many people, although there is this huge wave of women particularly like owning their rage and talking about sacred rage and, all of this kind of stuff, there must also be other women out there who are like, I'm just not an angry person. I'm very outspoken and yet I'm very quiet. And when I first learned that, so in human design, I'm a manifesting generator, but my personality or my mind is a reflector. So it's constantly sampling all these different ways. And then my body is a manifester. And if you want to know more about that, you have to come and to one of my community courses and I'll explain it in more detail. But my body is a manifester. And the theme for a manifester is anger and peace. And so when I first started looking at this article and like wondering, how does this theme relate to me and how do I experience anger? I realized that every time I'd ever looked up a physical symptom, what is this symptom about? It always says anger, always says little outburst of anger, or this is inflammation in the body, which is, also anger, like being inflamed. And so that's the approach I took to this article, was like, this article is for anyone who doesn't think of themselves as angry per se, but who maybe has experienced inflammation in the body or can relate to looking up any of their symptoms and being like, oh, this is about frustration or this is about inflammation, because for me, they are the same thing. They are definitely the body talking to us about anger or maybe fear, but unexpressed emotion that wants to kind of explode and doesn't have a voice way out. So these days I have a dual diagnosis of ADHD and autism, but autism in girls particularly shows up around 14, 15 and often shows up as overwhelm that also expresses as shutdown, but to the other person receiving it can look like anger. And so a lot of people in my life or my parents were like, why are you so angry? I'd be like, I'm not, I'm exhausted. What are you talking about? And so again, like these labels where I thought I was feeling my feelings wrong because people kept telling me I was feeling a certain way. And I'm like, but that's not my experience. How are you experiencing my feelings differently than I am?
Oh, I love this so much because I don't consider myself an angry person, but I would definitely consider myself an inflamed person. I struggle with celiac disease, which obviously, as most people know, is an autoimmune disease. And I'm constantly having inflammation in my body and struggling with that, depending on what I'm eating or how much stress I have. And so if somebody were to ask me, are you angry? I would be like, no, I'm not generally an angry person. But if they ask me if you're inflamed, I would say yes. And I love the differences between those because I would say I do have a lot of unexpressed emotions and have the ability to potentially explode sometimes, but I wouldn't necessarily label myself as angry. So I love this new reframe and take on this. I also have ADHD, and so you and I identify with each other in this area. And growing up, I think I had so much anger, especially in my teens, regarding the divorce of my parents, and my brother really struggled with substance abuse. And so if I look back on my childhood, I would say, yes, I was definitely an angry child. And so it probably led to me having celiac disease and all of that. So I would love to know more about, your look on how our past life, if you will, our current life, but really our past life really shapes who we are and how we look at anger and express anger.
For me, anger is when we aren't expressing. So when our emotion, which is just energy in motion, gets stuck in certain places and compressed because it's too much or it's not coming out right, it can be perceived as anger, particularly if what the other person wants is peace or harmony. And again, like peace and harmony are quite still, but anger has a lot of movement and expression. And so there are two ways that I know that can be really, really good to shift this. And that is remembering that it's about emotion and expression. And so dance or listening to loud music or any other form of creative expression or creative outlet is where I used to doodle for hours and hours. I also used to, as a teenager, back when we had corded phones, I would like wrap myself up in the phone cord while chatting to somebody on the phone and feel much better afterwards. And so that and doodle on the pad on the wall, right? Like these ridiculous ongoing doodles. And those things are such a great way of expressing the emotion or releasing it, or allowing it to come out of the throat, whether that is singing, whether it's voicing it out, whether it's talking, whether it's venting or describing, whether it's dancing or moving, whether it's listening to for me, it's very loud drum and bass. Normally in my teens, it was rock music. And from the outside, no one can ever tell, right? I've got headphones on and I'm walking along looking very graceful, poetic, mystical. Like nowadays, I probably just look like a middle-aged woman walking along, and no one would know that in my headphones is incredibly loud, dark drum and bass that feels like acupuncture in my brain and allows me to release some of this built-up energy that others might describe as anger. But for me, it's just expression of compressed energy that really needs to come out in quite a fiery or creative or spirited way.
Thank you so much for sharing this perspective about how you move through anger in your body. And I love that you were sharing that, sometimes people don't even know what you're moving through, especially if you have your headphones in, because I often wonder about our true understanding of anger. And, many women, especially those who've been conditioned to keep the peace, kind of carry around this quiet anger. And so, what can that quiet anger look like? And how can we begin to transform it if we're feeling like we're a little too much?
I find this really interesting, and I can see in the evolution of the species right now, and controversial topic, but for me, autism is a sign of evolution. And what we see is very angry outbursts. But often, one of the things that autists can't handle at all is noise, and I'm one of them. And so, quiet anger is possible. I just want to say that, first of all, because that's a revolutionary idea, right? So quiet anger is possible. And one of my favorite things to do, which is become more and more popular in recent years, is the kind of silent disco type thing, where you can be in a room with other people and have music on in your headphones at a tempo or sound that works for you whilst dancing or whilst moving around other people. And that is such a great way of expressing or releasing or moving this anger. But it taps into something much older. There is a deeply feminine need to be witnessed in expression. Not fixed, not solved, not taken personally, not have anything. We just need to be seen and or heard, witnessed in expression.
Oh, I love this. Oh my gosh, so much. And my daughter's probably going to kill me because oftentimes when we are in a little tiff, her father has taught her to just not respond to me, right? That it makes it worse and that I can get more inflamed if she says something. But then in her silence, that sometimes pisses me off even more, if you will, because I feel ignored and I don't feel seen and heard. And, I'm trying to be vulnerable with her and show her visibly what that inflammation is and why I'm inflamed, but she doesn't want to engage with me because she's learned through her dad that it makes it worse sometimes. And so I have to honor her process as well. But, I feel that we can oftentimes use this anger for ways to heal ourselves, to heal our inner little girl, if you will. I often, when I am having a tiff with my daughter, I actually feel like I'm a little girl with her. And I just want to be seen. That inner child of mine just wants to be seen. The one that I shared earlier that is just so angry. And, my adult self doesn't feel angry at all, but the little girl in me feels so angry for all the little things that happened to me when I was younger. And there was quite a few. And I have to honor that. So how can we as women, as people with inner child, learn to handle situations like this?
It is time to rise. We are being called to stand behind independent voices, movements, and media that refuse to be owned. Sovereign Magazine has never spoken to an advertiser, a corporation, or a billionaire. We are a grassroots movement made for and funded by you. If you are ready to rise, to shatter ceilings, and to stand in your truth, do it with us. It's free. Hit the like button, subscribe, comment, share. Every click helps us reach more people around the globe, ready to remember who they are. Are you coming with us?
There are many different ways to do that, but a long time ago, we would dance in front of an audience or maybe one other person or maybe alone, but it is that being witnessed piece. There is something totally different about dancing alone than there is about dancing and being seen. And when we see it in little girls, I don't know about you, but as a kid, I loved to perform. And it wasn't for celebration or applause, it was to be witnessed. There's something that we receive in the witnessing. And then when we hit our teens, that's not okay anymore, and it means something, and you have to be careful about who you do that in front of and how they might perceive it, and it changes. And so I think that there is something really important about finding an outlet or finding a place where we are seen, witnessed is a much better word, but where we're seen in our expression. And there's also an element of it being physical. So sound baths or like you experience, like all of these things actually give us a physical release or a shift in the energy that allows us to express in a way. And for me, one of the other things that really releases anger and inflammation is lymphatic drainage and massage. And again, there's another person there who is witnessing whilst I'm in this experience. And so, I don't know all the details, but what I do know is that there are other ways that can be very quiet to be in the release of and in the exchange of what people might call anger or inflammation, and also have it be peaceful and have it be harmonious. It makes so much sense, and it links, I think, really beautifully into why a lot of women in midlife who also feel invisible suddenly also then feel rage. And it's not because we're losing our beauty, and it's not because we're becoming incredibly beautiful in a different way. It's the invisibility that inflames and angers, right? Like, why can't you see me? But if you can't see yourself, then somebody else can't see you. And so, even with you in this moment, and even in this situation with your daughter, it's like the fix, and I don't want to call it that, but the way through, the shift, the alchemy, if you like, is, can I witness myself? Can I see myself? Because when we see ourselves first, when we see the situation first, when we acknowledge our own whatever it is in that moment that really needs to be seen, then we can let another see it too.
Yes, yes, yes. We all just want to be seen. I love that so much. Well, if you are somebody who is ready to be seen and heard and valued, definitely join Ebonie's monthly community calls. They're completely free. They're in our community, community.sovereign-magazine.com. Her private community is called the Maven Haven. She does a beautiful job every month of holding space. I join them because I find that there's just so much value in them every month. So definitely come to one of her calls. If you want to connect with her, she's also in our community. You can ask her questions at any time. And also, all of her details are in the show notes below. Thank you so much for being here today and allowing me to have a new reframe on anger and calling it inflammation. So thank you so much. I'm so glad you are here today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for listening. I'll be back tomorrow with another soul-led entrepreneur here to help you step into your sovereign self. Subscribe to our magazine and podcast and join our global community for all the magic. Details to connect with today's guest or join the movement are in the show notes. And if you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review. It helps us reach our goal of guiding 5 million women to self-sovereignty.